The loader already knew the rack was empty before he checked it again. His hand hit bare metal where a shell should have been. Across the turret, the gunner whispered, "Target front." 300 yards down the street, a German Panther rolled into view through drifting dust. Its turret rotated with slow confidence, the long barrel settling like a finger pointing directly at them. The Sherman's main gun was useless. The commander didn't ask for confirmation. He could see it in the loader's face. No shells, no smoke rounds. Nothing left but a machine gun that would bounce harmlessly off the Panther's armor. The street behind them was blocked by rubble. The alley to the left was too narrow to turn. Infantry were scattered in doorways, pinned by sniper fire. There was nowhere to retreat that didn't end in open ground. The Panther stopped. It didn't rush the shot. It didn't need to. The German crew believed they were looking at a dead tank already, a target waiting to be erased. Inside the Sherman, the air felt thick. Every man in the turret understood the math. One shell would punch through the hull, fuel fumes would ignite, the interior would become a furnace before anyone reached a hatch. The gunner kept his sight trained anyway, staring at a weapon he couldn't fire. The commander watched the Panther's barrel align with them and realized something cold and simple. They were about to die exactly where they sat. Unless he did something no tank manual had ever prepared them to do. For a heartbeat, nothing moved. Two tanks faced each other across a ruined street, one armed, one empty, suspended in a silence that felt louder than gunfire. The Panther's barrel held steady. The Sherman's crew waited for the flash that would end the argument. It didn't come. Time stretched thin inside the turret. The commander raised his hand without realizing he'd done it, palm frozen in the air as if he could physically hold the moment in place. Later, none of them would remember breathing. Only the pressure. Only the awareness that every second still alive was borrowed. This was the instant where battles usually become statistics. A tank destroyed. 5 men lost. Another line in a report. But this moment had a backstory measured in minutes. A chain of small decisions and accidents that led them here, unarmed in front of a gun designed to tear them open. 10 minutes earlier, the Sherman had been advancing with confidence, firing steadily, solving problems with steel and explosives. Nothing about that advance suggested it would end in silence. To understand why a combat-ready tank was suddenly helpless, you have to rewind to the street that drained it dry. Because the Panther wasn't the beginning of the crisis. It was the final question, and the answer had already been set in motion before either crew saw the other. 10 minutes earlier, the Sherman had been unstoppable. The platoon pushed through the town methodically, one intersection at a time. Buildings were blasted open before infantry crossed streets. Windows that looked suspicious received high explosive shells without debate. Urban fighting rewarded excess firepower. Hesitation got people killed. The crew fired as fast as the loader could work, the recoil slamming rhythm into the turret like a heartbeat. No one counted rounds in a fight like that. They counted survival in blocks gained and corners cleared. The commander assumed ammunition trucks were somewhere behind them, threading through the maze of streets the way logistics always did. Resupply was a background certainty, invisible, dependable, rarely questioned. Until the town closed behind them. A destroyed half-track burned sideways across the main road, cutting the supply line without anyone inside the Sherman realizing it. Rubble choked the side streets. The platoon kept advancing, solving each obstacle with more shells, while the distance between them and their ammunition quietly grew. Inside the tank, the loader felt the change first. His hands moved to familiar brackets and came back empty. He checked again, slower. Empty racks where metal should have been. He leaned down to the floor storage and found the same absence staring back at him. He didn't shout. He tapped the commander's boot and said it softly, like volume might make it real. "We're dry." The words didn't register at first. Tanks don't run out of ammunition in the middle of a push. That belonged to training exercises and worst-case planning, not active streets filled with gunfire. The commander opened the radio to call for resupply and found only overlapping panic. Other crews engaged, infantry requesting smoke, engines drowning voices into static. There was no safe pause. Pulling back meant exposing the tank to crossfire in open ground. Staying forward meant trusting the fight would end before the ammunition shortage mattered. The commander made the decision every advancing unit makes when momentum feels like protection. Keep moving. The last shell left the barrel with a metallic crack that echoed inside the turret longer than it should have. The loader reached automatically for another round and touched bare metal again. And that was when the Panther turned into the street. The Panther entered like it owned the road. It didn't rush. It rolled forward with the slow certainty of a machine built to win head-on fights. Its turret turned with mechanical patience until the long guns settled directly on the Sherman's hull. 300 yards. A perfect killing distance. The driver tried reverse on instinct. The Sherman lurched back half a meter and slammed into rubble. The impact rattled teeth. No space. No angle. No escape. The alley to their left was too tight to pivot. Infantry scattered along the sidewalks, pinned and useless to the tank's immediate survival. Inside the turret, options vanished one by one. Abandon the vehicle? The street was open. Machine guns would sweep them before boots hit pavement. Stay inside? One armor-piercing round would ignite the interior. The crew would burn before they cleared the hatch. The gunner kept the Panther in his sights anyway, muscle memory refusing to accept reality. His finger rested on a trigger connected to nothing. The German tank paused. That pause mattered. The Panther crew believed they were executing a helpless target. No urgency, no panic. They had time to aim perfectly. Confidence slowed them. Confidence turned a clean kill into a procedure. And in that sliver of arrogance, the Sherman's commander saw the only weapon he had left. Expectation. He grabbed the intercom and shouted a single word. "Forward!" The driver hesitated, not from fear, but disbelief, then slammed the throttle. The Sherman surged ahead, engine roaring, 40 tons of steel charging directly into a gun designed to erase it. The Panther's turret jerked to compensate. The gunner fired late. The shell screamed past, detonating behind them in a shower of brick. Distance collapsed. At close range, the Panther's long barrel became clumsy. It couldn't depress fast enough to track a target that refused to behave like a target. The Sherman hit the German tank at full speed, armor slamming into armor with a sound like buildings colliding. The impact threw both crews against their restraints. The Sherman didn't destroy the Panther. It locked it in place. And for the first time in the fight, the German gun could not fire. The commander didn't expect to win the collision. He expected to survive long enough for chaos to spread. Pinned hull to hull, the Panther couldn't rotate its turret. Its long gun was trapped against the Sherman's armor like a lever with no room to move. Inside both vehicles, crews were stunned, thrown sideways by the impact, ears ringing in the sudden silence after violence. The commander grabbed the radio and shouted their position. Not for help, for opportunity. Nearby infantry heard the crash before they understood it. The sound of tank armor slamming together echoed down the street like artillery at point-blank range. American soldiers poured from doorways, realizing the German gun that had locked the block seconds earlier was suddenly blind. Bazooka teams didn't hesitate. At 10 yards, shaped charges didn't care about armor thickness. The first rocket struck the Panther's side with a flat metallic punch. The second ignited something internal. Smoke burst from hatches. The German crew bailed or burned. No one inside the Sherman could tell which. They didn't look. They were still alive. The commander sagged back into his seat, breathing air that felt unreal. The loader stared at empty racks that had nearly killed them. The driver's hands shook on the controls. No one cheered. Survival arrived too quietly for celebration. They had defeated a superior tank with no ammunition. Not by firepower, by weaponizing the enemy's certainty. When the street finally went quiet, the Sherman was still pressed against the burned Panther, like two exhausted animals that had stopped fighting. Infantry secured the block. Smoke drifted upward in lazy columns. Someone outside pounded the Sherman's hull and gave a thumbs up the crew could barely process. The commander ordered the hatch open, and cold air flooded the turret, carrying the smell of brick dust and fuel, and something metallic that meant the fight was truly over. Only then did the shaking start. Not fear, the release of it. A supply truck reached them minutes later, crawling through the wreckage that had nearly killed them by delay alone. Fresh shells clanged into empty brackets. The loader handled each round carefully, as if ammunition had become fragile, personal. 10 minutes earlier, those racks had been invisible. Now they felt like the thin line between existence and fire. No medals marked the collision. No manual recommended charging a superior tank while empty. In official records, the engagement would read like any other. Enemy armor destroyed, street secured, advance continued. War compresses miracles into paperwork, but crews remember differently. Inside armored units, the story traveled as a warning disguised as pride. Tanks fail, logistics fail, plans collapse in the middle of motion. When the machine reaches its limit, the crew inherits the problem. And in that space, where steel stops solving things, survival belongs to the decision made in the worst second imaginable. Not the perfect decision, just the one the enemy never expected.